for TD head. It was Lego compatible, and let me show you. I should probably use my new stand. There we go. So now, when you're printing Lego compatible pieces, one of the things you got to be careful of is knowing that, especially if you print at a slower rate on the first the first layer or first few layers, whatever the case may be, there's a good chance that the bottom will be stuck together. You can see it coming out a little bit. I don't think that was intentional for the STL, or maybe it is. Or maybe it's only slightly, that might actually be intentional. But what's not intentional is there'll be a slight little tiny bit of overlap oftentimes on your first layer. So I'll use, and I used to do this when I used to print out other Lego compatible pieces. I would use an X-Acto knife, scrape very carefully around the edges on the inside a little bit, and then see until it gets to stick. Now I don't have to do that throughout the entirety of the inside of this, because the rest of it should be printed according to the original file. But that first layer, sticking to the base, because you never get a perfect match to the base, that's one reason. Another reason that could be, that I was saying before, and I might actually be wrong about this, but another possible reason is because it could be because if you have it hotter on the first layer, and or if you have it going slower for the first layer. So, but maybe perhaps more likely reasons, I could have been wrong about that, more likely reasons might simply be because you don't have a perfect matchup with the plastic hitting the base plate and these kinds of prints, number one. And number two, another thing to consider is when it hits the base plate, the base is heated, so it gets traction. There's a number of reasons that could be, maybe are true, maybe a bunch of them are true, maybe one of them's true. Whatever the case, you do tend to have the bottom with these, if you print from this area up, I have to scrape out the little extra bit of plastic after I get the supporter plastic out, to scrape around the edges on the bottom part of it, not necessarily in the inside, because the inside should be the right size if the STL 3D file is the right size. In this case, it seems like it was, of course. Just scraping them on the inside. I'll go in like a circular motion so it's even, and then scrape out a little bit. Or I attempt to make it even going around, or at least primarily even, and it looks like it's fine. I did scratch the bottom, I think, when I was taking the supported plastic out, but I like it to be a little bit tighter than it needs to be when it comes to Lego compatibility, because tighter is still better than looser. But because I used to print quite a few Lego compatible pieces. And like, just push her in there. And then there we go. It's a nice, firm, snug fit. You can even hear the coming out. I like that. Now, if I printed this upside down, if I switch the file so it prints upside down, it might work. But since the original STL file is like this, I would probably continue to do it that way, because the original designer put it that way. Now, it might just be because that's where the head's up, but I think some people with the STL files try to present it in a way that's ready for printing, like the what's better, or at least what does definitely seem to, or at least what has worked. Because if I do it like this, I think I did it with this, with one of the ones I made, but like I do like printing from the bottom up, because I get that top. Actually, I don't know if I did. I think I might have tried and it failed, and that's kind of my point. But I don't remember if I did or not, 100%. You also notice on this one, since I started going slower, but I didn't make the print speed go faster for quite a while going into it. If you can see this here, let me see if it'll. Yeah. So if you'll notice, I think that might be why. Let me turn the camera around. I think that might be why. That's better. The face looks a little bit rougher on this area than up here, but that could also be because this is doesn't have as many, it's not as complicated in the top, so that could also be a reason. But I think it might be because I turned the printer speed up higher later, and the slower printer speed might be at least part of the reason for maybe this happening. And also, I'm speculating, and also maybe why the face didn't turn out as clear, but it's still pretty clear. And expecting it to turn out perfect, I think, is a bit overly having expectations too high. But I think next time, I think I'll try to have, like, once it starts printing out the base areas, maybe earlier on, maybe when it gets up, maybe like just barely up. Maybe when there's like 3 layers, I might turn up the speed and see if it'll fail to print or if it'll still work. It might fail for a number of reasons. I might have to play, see if the temperature would need to be turned down for that or this or that, but it does seem like a fun. Now, the other plastic I have, I had the temperature at normal temps. I think for this one, I think I'll have to look. I don't know if I made a note of it. I wish I had. I don't know what I did to finally make this one finally go through. Part of it was because it wasn't being, the plastic wasn't being fed properly. The person who originally had it didn't quite. By the way, here's some of the support that I ripped off. But the person who originally owned it, in fact, I can show you. The way they put the spool, they ended up having another printed piece they put in to hold it better, but I'm finding trouble because that's why I have it hanging out like this, because when it's angled that way, it's not going to pull. It's not up and down. It doesn't have gravity and physics working for it. So if I ever were to attempt a bigger print, I'd probably have to modify this so that it's more appropriate for the, what would be needed. I think I will turn this on. Let me turn on the other power. I turn that off to save her a little bit of money. Oh, and oh, that hurt my back. Let me see here. I might just have it start preparing. Ouch, 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 ouch. Let's see, prepare. I am hungry though, but I might have a print while I'm eating. Preheat PLA, so that would be good. I don't want this to get tangled, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, what do I do? I want it to feed appropriately. So, Slim Bin, what's up? I'm really hungry. There's some kosher jerky here I could dig into. Thank you for this meal. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Yeshua. Yeshua. And you're saying a lot of okays. Just to hold me over. So I can start a print real quick. Well, this is not my house, but I can show you I can show you the ceiling fan. I hope this isn't like a fetish thing. I'm not kink shaming, but I don't want to be part of anybody's kinks if they're not my wife. Greetings from Argentina. Argentina. Hola. ¿Hablas en inglés o en portugués? Oh, no, en español. Lo siento, inglés. Español, portugués, pero en Argentina entienden español, sí. Porque mi hermano, mi amigo, quien quiero, um, él vive en Argentina. Um, quiero voy en un viajar allá. Quizás con mi esposa. Tengo una casa en los Filipinas. Estuve en Polandia, Ucrania, um, um, como se dice, the United Arab Emirates y Japón, Canadá, los Filipinas y los Estados Unidos. Buenos Aires, the South. I would love the freezing climate. I mean, I wasn't terribly happy with the freezing earlier when I had to change my my brake light, but I like cold temps. My body doesn't like it. A lot of health issues, but I like it. English and Spanish, that's a good combination. Those are like some of those common languages in the parts of the world where you can make money. So those are two very good languages to know. You like the wings of the fan? It's a bit it's a bit older. I like older ceiling fans. I do like ceiling fans. It does bring me certain something that stirs, right? Or something that awakens, you could say. Or something maybe more profound than that. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that does hold a kind of a beauty, doesn't it? I mean, it's kind of a shame we never used it for so many years. Now, my grandma's house, she would use it if it was too hot or whatever. Grandma was very good at paying attention. Grandma G, she was very good at paying attention. Like, are you too hot? Are you too cold? All these kind of things. And I feel like those kind of really loving considerations for oneself and for other people is something that seems to be seriously lacking. A lot of young parents don't think these days, like, are my kids too hot? Are my kids too cold? And a lot of them do. But I've definitely noticed there does seem to be a lot of people, parents, family members, just individuals in society that just don't think about that kind of thing anymore. And like in some people's cases, not throwing anybody under the bus, or at least trying not to do so to any severe manner. Some people are just busy with everything in their lives. And I understand that, but there's kind of beauty with like grandma, because grandma worked 2 jobs, took care of animals, took care of her house. It was spotless. She did the dusting and the vacuuming, and on top of all this, she still had the time to care about her local, the local clergy members, the members of the family, friends. Now, I'm not saying that all of us have the capacity to do that. She was next level, but I do think we need more of that in our society. They really are your favorite. I couldn't tell if you were a troll or not. They are pretty interesting. I'm glad it's not a fetish thing though. But not dissing you if you are. I just don't want to. I don't want to contribute to that kind of thing. I do like that some people are attracted to, like me, for example, but I don't want, even when that does happen here and there, I don't want that to be, you know what I mean? When you're in a relationship, you're dedicated to one person, you know what I mean? And this is the internet, so you just never know what's going on in people's heads, whether it's a troll or if it's something sexual or whatever it may be. So I'm glad it's pretty innocent. And I do have a kind of innocent fixation on things like that as well. For a lot of us, things like that, little details in the architecture around us. Sometimes the architecture around us is very old too. Like this house was like built in the 80s, or this yeah this home. I mean, was like built in the 80s. It needs a new floor and like two spaces, but it's a lot of this stuff is very old. Grandpa's house is like 150 years old or something like that. The oldest parts of it anyway. And then grandma's house, the oldest parts of it, I think are like 120 years old or something like that. They might actually be older than that, but there's something like that. They're very old homes. Like right around the corner when we were walking to the store one day, she pointed out to me like one of the local houses, a tiny little itty bitty, like practically a shed. Oh no, actually I think I had upstairs and a downstairs, so maybe not quite a shed, but it was very tiny. I hope it's still there. But apparently that thing is like over 100 years old too, and used to be where people would go to get their laundry. They would take their laundry down there, and the women who lived there, it was like the laundry store. The women would I'm assuming they probably used buckets. They might have used a hand crank dryer, things like that, and they would like just kind of like my wife and her culture. They're primarily like the first time I ever visited my wife. It was before we got married. She was like washing our clothes in the sink at the motel, and I think she did it at the hotel too. And of course, in America, I have long washed my clothes in the tub, but not because of tradition. It's a lack of resources, and that's true for them too. But what's interesting though is, yeah, like before we had washing machines, at least before we had them as a common commodity in, the upper poor and the middle class, it was yeah, use buckets and things, and there were other machines that they would use. I'm sure they had some sort of machinery going on if the business was successful enough, or at least if the business was making money. So they might have had like a hand crank dryer or something. But yeah, it was a very old laundromat essentially. A lot of the work was obviously probably still hand done. I mean, of course, our modern laundromats still have people coming in to take care of things too. So it's not like the human component has been entirely removed. But yeah, just kind of interesting. Like the homes in her area is so old. Unfortunately, I think a lot of buildings are new. Well, new buildings are coming in. Like they put a Dollar General there. They might start, some of these old buildings might eventually get sold and torn down, but hopefully not. Hopefully when the people who own them pass and their children get them, hopefully they'll keep them around for a while. Anywho. My candy in Argentina. My Argentinian friend wants me to try Argentinian. He was bringing up ice cream. I don't know if it was because their ice cream. Hey, Jack, was any different? I think it's because the ice cream there. I think he was talking about how they measure the ice cream. I was like, "Do you measure the ice cream here in the U.S.?" And I was like, "No." There's something about measurement. I think that Argentina does that's unique. When I was in the Philippines, they have this thing called dirty ice cream, which I believe is made with coconut milk instead of cow milk. It is so blooming good. And you might ask, why do they do that? Well, they don't really have a whole lot of cows there. They have plenty of whatever bull they have. I'm sure they do have cows and potentially cow milk thereby. They don't have the kind of cows we have here. Now in the U.S., we have all kinds of, we have a variety of different kinds of cattle. Like, there's certainly one area. I remember there was like an ostrich farm there too, but they also had a unique kind of, I think, cattle in that area. And I was doing DoorDash, or maybe it was Uber Eats, probably DoorDash. I'd gotten kind of off the beaten path there. There was like an ostrich farm, and there was like, I think they had cattle in the area, but I think even the farm nearby us, like you'll see different kinds of farm animals, different species of cattle, different species of horse. And with cattle, there are some strikingly different species as opposed to like horses, where they often look very similar. The history of humans and cows seems to go back very far, and that might account for we could speculate that might account for the genetic diversity. But the kind of bulls, I don't think I've ever seen cows in the Philippines. The kind of bulls you'll typically see over there, I don't know what species they are, but I assume they were probably brought over by the Spanish when they came over, maybe the Portuguese as well. I'm not sure. Very, very, very big bulls. They seem very chill too. They don't seem to go very fast. They kind of seem like what do you call them? Oryxes. I know those are extinct, but they kind of remind me of those. Like in the Philippines too, they also have like even at the relatively nice store in the mall, which is kind of like a Walmart, the grocery store. Even they had cockroaches at one area and dry milk, like powdered milk. You add water. I don't. Yeah, I've never had just regular milk in the Philippines. I don't think most people can afford to drink it regularly, and on top of that, and when you can't afford to drink, use food on a regular basis, it goes bad. And people over there are in extreme poverty, so it wouldn't make sense to have it. But if you ever move to the Philippines to have a house there, I would not recommend. Well, I will say that there's going to be a lack of some things that you find a luxury in the U.S. They're commonplace, some things. And there's some things they have over there that we don't have here, so it's kind of a trade-off. Anyway, new minimalism style. No, no, I don't like minimalism in architecture, if that's what we're talking about. I'm not a big fan of that either. I've seen it happen in places. Fortunately, like places like Baltimore City seem to be going back to kind of honoring the kind of beautiful architectural designs that they used to have in the past. And of course, some of those buildings are so old. They're from a time in American history, which I think lasted a good bit, but that would honor even more ancient cultures. And then you would see these designs that were incredible. And of course, they might have honored the more ancient architectural patterns, but they also added their own little flair and twist to it. The minimalism in architecture, I think, is very unfortunate many times. Sometimes it can be nice, but I don't want to see it everywhere, if that makes sense. If you're trying to make houses affordable, I can understand it because you're talking about an economic reason. But if you're just doing it because maybe the CEO of some business likes the aesthetic, I think that's kind of silly. Synagogues, synagogues architecture style is beautiful. I would love to see I know a lot of the Yehudim went to parts of South America, during the diaspora, one of the causes of the diaspora. There are many reasons we've been spread all over the place. Check, check. But he grabbed my leg, or my pant leg. But yeah, yeah. I'm assuming they probably went to South America after the expulsion from Spain, or was that before the Europeans rediscovered North America, or North and South America, or so not North and South, the Americas, I should say. I don't remember when the expulsion from Spain exactly happened, but yeah, I would love to see some of the synagogues there. One of the songs I listen to on YouTube, well, I say song, but it's just the Shema, but it's with a South American. It's South Americans singing the Shema with some South American like Hispanic music in the background. It might even be not a whole lot of Jews in Spain since the expulsion, so I assume not Spanish, but the Spanish culture was still handed down by the peoples in parts of South America and the Philippines and throughout places that Spanish people have gone, including Spanish Jews. Interesting. The time when the time who was it? Even Ezra, when he was in Spain, it wasn't modern Spain, but it was still the same land, and it was ruled by Muslims. Like, why is Ibn Ezra, like Ibn? That's like the I believe the Arabic equivalent of Ben in Hebrew. Why is it in Arabic if he's Jewish? Ibn Ezra is a famous Jew. Well, it's probably because he was surrounded by Islamic culture, and some of his ancestors might have married into Arab. Some Arabs might have converted and married some of the Jews living there, and they might have gotten that last name that way. It could have been for other reasons. I'm not 100% sure on Ibn Ezra in particular, but there are a lot of reasons where that can happen. And Jews, as Yehudim, as Jews, we don't always intermarry. You know, we're often very alienated from other cultures, but it's not. It does happen, and given given a couple hundred years, you might be surprised the number of times it might occur, right? So depending on which group of Jews we're talking about, because different Jews did different things. But yeah, I recommend you to search Templo de la Libertad. I'll screenshot that and maybe I'll look that up. It is the most important synagogue in Argentina for a really good style. Minimalism architecture equals lack of creativity and passion. Yeah, it's largely, it feels like it's just a business venture. It feels like it's just, yeah, it's just corporate muck at that point. And if it's done by somebody who just actually wants to build their house that way, that I mean, how many people do you know build their houses with minimalism in mind? Now, granted, when it comes to like storing my files and organizing my things, there's a sense of minimalism that goes into it. Like I like having all of my things into, or all of my tinier objects into different containers with names on them, etc. But the contents of those things, of those containers, are very complex oftentimes, and even moreover, like I like to have a little bit of flair in the way the other aspect. Like one of the reasons I want these things stored is so that I can, well. I'm trying to justify it, but maybe that's not justify it. Maybe I do actually, maybe I'm wrong about what I was trying to say. Maybe I do like minimalism in some circumstances. I don't like it in overall architecture, however. Now, in certain internal rooms, like if you have a room that's square and doesn't have much going on, fine, especially if you're using it to do things like storing in the way I'm talking about. But like the entire building, I don't think should be like that. Like you can have areas for that place for purposes of storage and file record keeping that have a more minimalist aesthetic for the purpose, perhaps, of keeping things clean, organized, safe, and secure. That I think is fine. But if you have a house that's just a big old square, and all the windows are the exact same size, and like you have like maybe like one window per wall, and all the walls are the same, and of course that's a bit of an extremist example of minimalism. But not adding those extra pieces of flair, and especially when you can afford it, it just well, when you can afford it, if it's not because of economic reasons, it rings heavily of an absence of overall creativity, ambition, vision, etc. Right? So, it's nice to have little areas of flair and excitement, right? Of something that's a little bit more complex. In Argentina, is that where it is? When you have the big old Jewish community? Yeah, I'm not entirely surprised. Here, I'll probably I might as well keep you guys going. I'm just going, well, no, because I'm going to do that. Yeah, because I got to get a bath too and other things. But, all right, y'all go. Love you.